All right, so with that, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Paul Saffo to you all. Paul, many of you will actually know him already. He's one of the most respected forecasters in Silicon Valley who studies the dynamics of large long-term technological change and advises corporates and NGOs and governmental clients worldwide. He's a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, a fellow of the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences, and this spring he's a visiting fellow at the Australian Defense College. He taught here at Stanford for 2 decades as an adjunct professor in the engineering school, and he previously was the chair of future studies at the Singularity University. He's also the chair of Samsung Science Board, or was the chair, sorry, of the Samsung Science Board, and has other board memberships in large tech companies. He holds various degrees, including from Harvard and Cambridge and this very law school here. Being a world-renowned forecaster is also, I think maybe the law degree helps, in arguing about the future. And so Paul will speak about Hugo's Daemon, slouching towards a new Grotian moment. And with that, it looks like you're ready. Please join me in welcoming Paul Saffo.
I'm going to fly low and fast over this because I realize I'm standing between you and cocktail hour, which is always a bad idea with lawyers. What I want to do is provide some larger context around the digital revolution, storms in other men's worlds, if you may, some deeper implications of what's going on behind the tools and the like that you're using. This is a picture of Hugo Grotian. So how many of you remember, those of you who are lawyers, remember your class, one solo class in international law? Hugo Grotian, does his name ring a bell? Yes, father of public international law. As I said here, he lived between 1582 and 1645, and which was living in an absolutely astonishing period of time, not unlike today. Some of the events in his life included the Copernican Revolution, the 30 Years' War, the Peace of Westphalia, most importantly, which of course was the basis for the nation-state order that we live in today. And in fact, the Grotian essence was the notion of a theory of statehood and reciprocal relations among states. And we're in another Grotian moment, as I'll go into some detail in a moment. But if you had to reduce the digital revolution to one single factor, it would be the words I put into his mouth here. In cyberspace, there is no distance between 2 points. We're fundamentally rebalancing the world around that. It's why you all get to work from home. Nobody goes into the office anymore, but also why we're in this collision of cultures today. And it's bringing us closer to a new moment that was not unlike the moment when Hugo Grotian formed the theories of international law that really shaped the world up to today. I chose my title with care. Since I'm speaking in front of lawyers, I did not want to be casual about this. The Grotian moment, as the slide here says, it's a paradigm-shifting moment when new rules and doctrines of customary international law emerge with unusual rapidity. It's, a Schumpeterian moment of creative destruction. And the word Daemon, computer scientists in the room, raise your hands. I mean, you can show your age if you know the term daemon. A daemon is, especially in the Unix world, is a program that's running in the background doing stuff and with no user involvement. The only time you notice a daemon is when something goes wrong. It is also drawn from the Greek and refers to a personified spirit, which is good or hostile, but in general kind of ambiguous. And if you think about the trajectory of autonomous AI agents, we're returning to a new age of daemons. And in fact, I'll offer you a forecast. It's my business. I'm a forecaster. Sometime before 2050, cyberspace is going to be so crowded with AI demons that there will be no space left for humans in cyberspace, and we'll have to go back to using Morse code and CB radio and the like. But it has interesting implications. So as mentioned, I was fresh back from Australia. I note that wars inevitably start with an error, that somebody stumbles, a gun goes off, or a driver drives the Archduke past the wrong coffee house. Well, the next war might just start with an AI agent stumbling and making some sort of mistake. I also use the word slouching in my title, and I use that with purpose. So how many folks have read Yeats? Show of hands here. You know the poem, Slouching Towards Bethlehem. Slouching doesn't mean being a hipster. Slouching is a reference to something much more purposeful and profound and inevitable. And if I was going to describe this moment in time, there are a lot of people out there who are viewing the uncertainty of today as a teleological phenomena. They're absolutely convinced that this uncertainty is going to lead in a very specific direction, and they're quietly trying to make it happen. You may notice the seeming chaos in Washington. As I get a little deeper into this talk, there's no chaos in Washington. It's absolutely purposeful. It only seems chaotic because everybody has the wrong frame of reference on it. So compare the two centuries, the 17th century of Hugo Grotius with this moment in time. The 17th century witnessed the print revolution, maritime technologies, oceanic networks appearing. This was the age of reconnaissance. The ocean went from being a barrier to a highway, just as today with online digital technologies, we have cyberspace. It's a new kind of magical highway. They had the technology of maritime, shipbuilding and the like. We have robotics, AI, space, and beyond. New kinds of networks then, new kinds of networks today. Religious upheaval back then. Well, we have upheaval today. Social media, by the way, I'll offer you another forecast. Sometime between now and 2050, we will see the emergence of a major new religion. Hundreds of religions start a year, none of them stick. As Nietzsche put it so well 100 years ago, nearly 2,000 years and no new God. New networks lead to new relationships and inevitably to new religions. And Grotius saw the decline of monarchies. That's what inspired him to write what he wrote. We're seeing the decline of the nation state. And let me go into that one, a little bit of detail. That we see, the difference between the 17th and the 21st century was the nation state started its decline 60, 70 years ago. This is not new. Think about it. A nation state has territorial sovereignty and exclusivity in international law. Exclusivity in international law ended in 1948 with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And now we have non-states being recognized in international law. And territorial sovereignty and control, well, that was done in 1954 with the first Atlas missile and the ICBM. There is no longer a world in which you have territorial sovereignty and security. So we're in this eroding world, and it's about to accelerate. But if you look at it over the last couple of centuries, you can always tell who's in charge by what the biggest building is in town. The cathedral, 1280, Notre Dame is finished. The 1520s, just before Grotius is born, now the biggest building in town is the Stadshal. This is actually the first Stadshus in Middelburg in the Netherlands. And then we go on, 1584, it's the parliament. It's no longer the town hall, it's the building of state. And then in the 1960s, we have the Union Carbide Building Corporation. So we had all of those worlds, but what's next? Clearly, technology is the solvent leaching the glue out of our institutions. Digital technology is leaching the glue out of our institutions. You experience it every day in your work, but it's happening at a national and international level as well. Well, one obvious possibility is that it's the rise of city-states, sort of a quasi-devolution of the nation-state order. Also not a new idea, though everybody, it seems like somebody new every day says this. Kenichi Omai was the first one to really talk about this way back in the 1990s. And you have two kinds of city-states. Sovereign city-states like Singapore that have a seat at the United Nations. You have virtual city-states like the San Francisco Bay Area. We're the 17th largest economy in the world. We have an identifiable culture, and so far at least, we're still part of the United States. It turns out that whole idea of everybody trying to devolve into something else is rather old. Breaking up has always been fashionable. Note the press release from Governor Pritzker from the day before yesterday, signing a memorandum of understanding between Illinois and the United Kingdom. Gavin Newsom doing the same thing. Not new, Governor Schwarzenegger cut a deal in direct opposition to President Bush 20 plus years ago. Cal exit is fashionable now. And who here is from California? How many times has California tried to break up? More than 220 times. It almost worked in 1915, and the only thing that saved us was completion of the ridge route across the Tehachapi's. Because before then, it was too damn hard to get to Sacramento, and everybody said, let's just split the state there. So I've been trying to do this. It's not new, but it seems that digital technology is adding a certain credibility to it, shall we say. So indicators. As a forecaster, I spend a lot of time looking for things that seem out of place, things that don't seem to quite fit. How many people in this room have a Starlink contract? Raise your hands. Keep your hands up. Are you a lawyer?
Yeah.
Have you read the terms and conditions of that contract?
I did. I only used it when I was on a friend's boat.
Always read the fine print. This is chapter 10, governing law. I just downloaded it. I wanted to make sure it was still up there. Let me add some emphasis here. For services provided on Mars or in transit to Mars via Starship or other spacecraft, the parties recognize Mars as a free planet and that no Earth-based government has authority or sovereignty over Martian activities. Accordingly, disputes will be settled through self-governing principles established in good faith, and so on and so on. I'm so jealous of this provision. I briefly actually did practice as a lawyer. I hated every minute of it, and I was practicing international law. I would have given anything to write that provision, because it would be like, the law clerks who secretly put their initials in a decision. You could bore your friends forever. What is going on here? Well, it turns out that that Elon Musk has some really big plans, and they only incidentally have to do with making money. Notice how little attention he's paying to Tesla. Let me add another detail here. First, let's go down the list. So does everybody recognize the person on the far left? Elon Musk. And show of hands, who recognizes the second person there? Okay, about 40%. That is Peter Thiel. How many people recognize the person on the far right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's Curtis Yarvin. These are the three most, in my opinion, the three most important people in the United States today. They are the people who are really calling the shots in Washington, and their order of impact is Elon Musk is the least important. Peter Thiel is far more important, by the way, a graduate of this law school. And Curtis Yarvin is hands down the single most important and perhaps the most dangerous person in the United States at the moment, because they have plans that are very different than the rest of us. I'll come back to that. So, what's the end game for Elon Musk? This is the caption from 2014. It was Musk and Thiel. They co-founded PayPal. And the initial goal of PayPal, this is the actual caption, was to create an internet currency to replace the dollar. So now connect the space part, independent nation in space. This is basically a plan to create a new kind of international order. And if you start thinking about that, Elon Musk also is in the process of attempting to get our administration to exit from every single space-related treaty the United States has ever signed. And that includes the space treaty and all of our ballistic missile treaties. He also wants to get us out of the United Nations Conference on Law of the Sea, get rid of the Law of the Sea Treaty. And the idea here is to create a paradise of individuality. If you think about it, what we're in a moment of here is there are a bunch of people working to say, let us replace the international order of institutions with a new order that emphasizes individuals. And you all as lawyers have spent your career working about caring for institutions, building institutional trust and the like. This is a very strange world that he's proposing to put us in. Peter Thiel, more recently, said, I have a better idea. How many people remember the Seasteading Institute from 20 years ago? A couple. And how seriously did you take that idea when he mentioned it 20 years ago? Yeah, it was kind of wacky.
Pirates, I thought were going to take it over.
Say it again?
I thought pirates were going to take it over.
Yeah, I thought pirates were going to take it over. So you're absolutely right, and that's how I felt. Well, they're still in business. This is the latest attempt. The original seasteading proposal was to park a cruise ship off the coast, just outside a national jurisdiction, and then helicopter in the programmers in and out. And they quickly discovered that even libertarians don't like living on cruise ships. And so they're trying to cut deals elsewhere. Now, this does sound a little wacky. And this is part of the challenge at this moment of time. There's some very important things happening that are completely outside the normal frame of reference. For example, one frame of reference is, all international relations today are nation state on nation state, and occasionally in special circumstances, a non-nation state actor gets involved and changes things, like flying a plane into a building. Well, we're moving into a very different kind of world, where nation state actors are moving in not just as peripheral actors, but as central parties to the nature and structure of international relations. But this whole thing about splinter microstates, I mean, this sounds kind of ridiculous, and maybe it becomes a Club Med. It has a long history, turns out. The long, strange history of failed seaborne micronations. I've put a couple of my favorites. The Republic of Minerva in 1971, as I was flying back from Australia, I realized we flew right over the top of the Republic of Minerva. It's in absolutely the middle of nowhere, and it was an Australian. I think he landed a ship there, put up an antenna, and I think was trying to create a new microstate for drug dealing. Didn't work. The King of Tonga came down and said, sorry, we own it, end of story. Then many of you, I'm sure, know the famous story of Sealand. If anybody here old enough from England who remembers Radio Mi Amigo or Radio Caroline broadcasting the pirate stations off of England, well, they decided they're a country. And right here in California, my favorite one was the constitutional monarchy of Apollonia, which was the Cortez Reefs off of San Diego. And a gentleman took a old concrete hulled ship and sank it on the Cortez Reef. He failed to account for the fact that the waves there can be 120 feet high. It was pushed off and didn't last, and the US Navy said, nice try. So long history of failed nations, Peter Thiel doing these crazy things off the coast. Maybe this time is different. Maybe this time is different because in cyberspace, there is no distance between 2 points. And we all know that digital technology and the related technologies are huge amplifiers of power and connectivity. So maybe not quixotically hopeless. Perhaps digital technologies has changed the equation. I don't have time to go into the details about Curtis Yarvin, but the New York Times has done the job for me. This was the cover story of the New York Times Sunday magazine in January. Curtis Yarvin says, democracy is done. Powerful conservatives are listening. You should read this article from start to finish. His attitude, and the attitude of the other two, is that democracy needs to go away because it's inefficient. And they have a proposal for something more efficient. Again, I'm flying low and fast over a lot of details. It's what they refer to as the cathedral, the central ideas. And I've written this up to give you a sense of what it is. Work, the future of work is AI. The future of money is crypto. Future of finance, it's DeFi, distributed finance. The future of learning, VR, internet, Web3, and so on and so on. And the future corporations will be DAOs. But look at the one just above it. Network states, the shift from nations to network states. Who here knows what a network state is? Raise your hand. One, two. And even though this is a law school, I'm not going to call on anyone. So 2 people out of this room. Network state may be the most important concept that you will take from my talk if you take anything. Network state is not your mother's nation state at all. It is their vision for a new kind of world order. So I've taken this chart from one of their publications. A network state is a geographically decentralized and connected by the internet, a global archipelago of physical territory, continuous growth by a continuous plebiscite, attracting aligned immigrants. That there will be a nation state for people who want to live forever, like my friend Peter Diamandis, and a nation state for people who want to just do crypto, or a network state, people want to do crypto. Think of it as living in cyberspace with physical lily pads on the planet, and that you become a citizen of this. Does this sound fun? It probably sounds quite strange. Well, they can't possibly be serious, can they? Just another utopian idea, right? Well, why kick the Presidio out of the National Park Service? What do you think? Perhaps the government, this administration wants to sell the Presidio to private individuals who want to turn it into what they call a freedom city, which is the physical instantiation of a network state. Like I said, they don't like living on boats, but this real estate looks pretty good. Who here paid much attention to California Forever? Yeah, I did think, what is going on? Secret purchase of 80,000 acres in Little Solano County, and they say, yeah, we're going to build a new community. Well, they won't fess up, but it looks like this is also another real estate move to create another so-called freedom city to live in. So things are deeper and stranger than we could possibly imagine at this moment. Like I said, the antics in Washington seem random. They're not. There are people who really have a serious plan here. And someone told us exactly what the plan was 20 plus years ago. And that was Grover Nordquist. Famously said in 2001, I don't want to abolish the government. I simply want to reduce it to the size where I can drag it into the bathroom and drown it in the bathtub. Again, so let me just do a quick reality check. Do I sound like a raving maniac? Does it seem like this is completely out of a frame of reference? Everything I've described to you is in the public record. They have written a detailed description of what the future network state order should be. And in my personal opinion, the reason of what's going on in Washington today is all those other microstates failed because powerful nation states stopped them. And if you want to create a new world of libertarian network states, you better start by weakening the most powerful nation state on the planet. And I strongly suspect that's exactly what's afoot. Like I said, I promised I will be fast at this. I want to emphasize network states are not inevitable, but what we're in is this moment where the decline of the nation state and digital technology, the solvent leaching the glue out of our organizations and our institutions, has created this protean fluid moment where some very rich people with some very strange ideas realized they might actually be able to pull this off. So I still think that, if I invoke Herman Melville, his fictional captain Ahab, as he said at the time about his chase for the white whale, all my means are sane. My motive and my object are utterly mad. I'm not offering a prediction that the network state vision will come to pass. What I'm saying is it's an indicator of just how much more fluid and how much more uncertain this Grotian moment actually is. It's a moment where small events can have big consequences, and we could end up as a planetary body go in any number of different ways. So my closing thought is this. Who is going to be the Grotius for the new global cyber terrain? Think of that period from the 1580s to the 1640 when Hugo Grotius lived. You had monarchies fighting among each other. You had the Spanish Inquisition. You had all sorts of people jockeying to create a new kind of world. And we're at a moment where we need to think systematically about the new kind of world that is going to emerge out of all the digital churn and chaos that we're all in. And the danger is when we get too buried in the details of the mechanics of it, of the technology, the danger is everybody ends up standing on a whale, fishing for minnows. Well, completely unnoticed, some folks are heading off in another direction, creating a world that will catch us by surprise. So my closing thought is keep doing the important work you're doing. But take some time to look this stuff up and think about the possibilities, and above all, especially if you're in a teaching institution or you have influence over junior colleagues and the like, say, hey, look up Hugo Grotius and ask yourself, who is going to be the theoretician who will be the architect of the new legal order of a world that we would all love to live in? Thank you.